information and all of these very good things. So I wanted to know, again, as asked previously, in his now almost 10 years, the Secretary General, on the proposal of there being a UN Freedom of Information procedure whereby people could request information and have some right to it, has he taken any steps? And as an example, I guess, of this, yesterday I asked you whether the various departments asked by OIOS to take steps in the John Ash/Englap Sang audit did so by April 30th and to provide some documentation that they did. Do you have such documentation?
I do not. The audits follow their regular process. OIOS follows up with the departments to ensure that the recommendations are followed. Speaking of which, I failed to also announce that the long-awaited UNDP audit on South-South cooperation is now available on the office of the UNDP office audit. We have if you have problems finding it, let us know. We have the exact location of the audit.
FOIA.
On the issue, that hasn't changed. I think the proposals were put forward. The discussions were with member states, so I have nothing to add on that.
Is there going to be a press conference at long last by the South-South office of UNDP?
Mr. Chadic told me that he would be, spoke to him earlier today, he said he would be available in the coming days as soon as we have a date.
One last
We will
UNDP
communicate
thing.
it. Yes, sir.
I've been wanting, there's a widely circulated article saying that Helen Clark has kicked off a campaign trip for NextSG, which is obviously within her rights, but I wanted to ask you again, what are the sort of, as the head of the UN system, Ban Ki-moon, what are his thoughts on sitting, full-time UN officials kicking off a campaign, essentially a political, campaigning for the NextSG side? Is she taking a days off to do that? Is that a...
I think I think the details of the questions for UNDP. As far as Secretary General is concerned, he would expect that any UN official who is in the running for NextSG will completely separate those activities from their professional
So who's
activities.
paying for the travel? It's called a campaign trip.
I think those details you should ask UNDP.
Okay.
I've told with the SGs.
Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe I'm missing something. Yesterday, with this reduced pass, I went to cover the Secretary General's discussion in the ECOSOC chamber. I asked for MALU to come. They came. I'm getting to the point here. Point is, number one, even with the MALU escort, I was 3 times asked by guards what I was doing there with this pass. And finally, I was told I'm not allowed to talk to diplomats there. I have to wait for them to come and talk to me, which is not really the way a staking out a meeting works. And so I wanted to know, it seemed totally contrary to, one, what other journalists here can do, but two, to what journalism is. Meaning, so these appear to be the restrictions that have been placed on me. And I wanted to know, is that the case? Was this some misunderstanding, excuse me, on my part? Or is there some, what am I missing here that you claim that there is a respect for freedom of the press if I'm being stopped 3 times by guards and told not to talk to diplomats?
Matthew, I think if there are particular issues, you need to deal with them with MALU. I think the Secretary General's message is focused on those journalists who are imprisoned, who are tortured, who are vilified. I think your issue is one of access and one of accreditation. So I think they're two separate cases. You're here. I patiently answer every question you've asked.
Sure.
You asked. So again, if it's a personal issue of access or what a guard may have said to you, I would encourage you to deal with
I would
it
say it's
bilaterally
pretty
with
systematic.
DPI.
3 times guards came and said, you can't be here. And in
I-
fact, stood in front of me while the Secretary General walked by. So
that's
I
my-
understand it's not torture, but I'm
that's
saying
my-
it is in the
that's-
UN.
That's my understanding. Yes, and there are rules
Yeah.
and regulations, and your pass.
So why
tells you
why
certain-
can some journalists
Matthew,
here
I'm not
ask questions
going.
to
I'm not
diplomats?
going.
That's what I was
I'm
told.
not